grooves and make moves with all the mommies. The back of the club sipping Moet is where you find me. Who rock grooves and make moves with all the mommies. The back of the club sipping Moet is where you find me. Mad question asking, blunt passing music. Mad question asking, blunt passing music. Mad question asking, blunt passing music. Mad question asking, blunt passing music.
So I was sitting there thinking, do I want to go on this rant today after the day I had, after the protest or lack thereof, after 95 pretty much turning to a parking lot? And I do kind of want to talk about this. This isn't actually, this is like a call in. So we need to talk to our brothers in my community. Hi, how you doing? Hi, friendly neighborhood Negro right here. Breaking news. It's not cute to sag your jeans. I mean, the problem I have with sagging your jeans is not what you think. After today, I'm not accepting it anymore. I was out getting lunch today on my way back from the protest, and I saw this brother sagging his pants. And it's like, you know what? That's fine. You know, it's 2004. That's hip hop. You know, it started in jail. I don't know why we're glorifying that. That's fine. But my man was sagging his jeans. And for some odd reason, not only was he sagging his jeans, he felt compelled to sag his jeans. And he clearly didn't wipe his butt because he was wearing white undies. And I was just trying to understand why there was like a Pepe Le Pew skid mark in the middle of like his undies. I was like, what? I was like, black man. I was like, King, you dropped this. What are we doing out here? It was just, oh my gosh. And a part of me, like, I felt compelled, and I think that maybe I am getting old because the unk in me, my inner unk came out, and I walked up to him. I was like, hey, blood, hey, dog, can you just like pull your pants up? We don't need to. Yeah, it was bad. It was real bad. It wasn't cute at all. I didn't know what we was trying to do today. I mean, you got to use the baby wipes. It gets everything. You know what I'm saying? It just kind of, it, you know how they say like his love covers all. It just, in that moment, it didn't feel like that brother loved himself. I wanted to give him a hug. At the same time, I wanted to change his diaper. I don't know, but it's not just people in our community specifically. And, you know, I've seen this numerous times. You know, I see the people that ruin white shirts when they got the powdery deodorant and it looks like they've been like, you know what I'm saying? Like they've been doing lines of cocaines off their armpits. It just looks ridiculous. It looks bad. It's cringeworthy. I don't usually like to police people on their outfits, but it just absolutely upset me. I don't really know the moral of this story. It's just more so, this is my podcast. I talk about what I want. I rant about what I want. And here comes the intro real quick. Every time I go in, every time I go in, every time I go in, I'm chilling. Every time I go in, every time I go in, every time I go in, I'm chilling. I'm a kid. I'm a kid. I'm a kid. I'm chilling. I'm a kid. I'm a kid. I'm chilling. Welcome everybody to the Kid Casper podcast. I'm your gracious, beautiful, blessed, beloved, and black host, the kid that they call Casper. The KID in Kid Casper stands for King of Development. I'm that menace with the melanin. Reject me as I am, as long as he is still relevant. You know what I'm saying? First off, I'd like to start this off. I've been doing this thing when I introduce myself. I am a lover and worshiper of Yahshua the King, Jesus the Christ. You know what I'm saying? The gospel is not found in the Vatican, it's African. Y'all know what that means. You know, I'm a Christian rapper / activist. You know what I'm saying? So I love Jesus. I'm super far from a pacifist, you know, taco enthusiast, otaku, current, you know, I've been told I'm a part of like the I didn't know there was a 6 foot committee. I didn't get the brochure. I didn't know that was necessarily need to plug. Maybe I need to die to my misogyny a little bit. I don't know. That's completely besides the point. Today, my guest this evening on this Saturday night is a very good, I don't even like to say friend at this point. This is a very good, I would say this is a blood bought brother, but at the same time, this is a brother that I, you know, decide to do life with outside of the 4 walls, outside of the institutions, outside of the meeting grounds. You know what I'm saying? He is a father, he is a husband, he is an artist. He's got into the TikTok space as a, not only as a social commentator, but you know, he has a little bit of more of a comedic side I did not know, but you know, refreshing to see this side of him and everything like that. Mental health advocate, about to get his master's degree, and you know what I'm saying, we speaking that into existence, not because, you know, that's how it works, but he's actually putting the work in. You know what I'm saying? D's don't get degrees around here. He really about this, life. Everybody, I'm introducing to you today. I mean, I've had him on here a couple of times on subjects of being black in the military, talking about deconstruction, but as far as a one-on-one interview on Koinonia with the kid on the Kid Casper podcast. Everybody, Mike Saint from Jacksonville, Florida. How you doing today, sir?
I'm well, man. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, thank man. You. It's I've been trying to get you. I mean, I feel like one, we talk like, we don't talk, I would say we don't have like a high maintenance relationship, but when we do talk, it's nothing but fruitful, regardless of how long or short it actually is. You could just it's really real. And I've been doing this thing as of late when it comes to like these interviews, giving people an idea of the people that directly impact my life and everything like that. And I thought that this would be something special, not only to share in a space with you, my brother, but share it to the following, share it to the arrows and the weirdos that have been following me thus far and everything like that. So being able to not only share the space with you, my brother, but, you know, give you your flowers and everything like that, tell you how amazing you is and everything like that. I think that this would be dope. I think that this would definitely be dope.
Yeah. I'm usually not one to design vases for flowers, unsolicited flowers at that. But I guess I have to make an exception because I am on the Kid Casper podcast. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I'm I'm happy to be a part of the world. I feel like you created you definitely carved out your own space, and created your own world, man, and your own support system. So this is, I consider myself very fortunate to be a part of that, especially tonight.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. You know what I'm saying? You know, being a full time, I tell people all the time, I'm like, yo, I don't play when it comes to kids. You know, full-time fatherhood in itself, like people think that they babysit their kids for some odd reason. I don't know how that works out. But you know what I'm saying? So not only were you able to, like, you know, up, you know, raise your kids up not only in the Lord, but you know, be able to just make a little bit of time for little old me. You all right for that. You know what I'm saying? You all right for that. So, you know, for those that do not know Brother Mike, this will be an opportunity for him to kind of give you guys an idea of who he is as a person, as an individual, as an artist. But we're going to start off with you just kind of introducing yourself, man. Tell the people what you about, and, you know, talk your talk. You know what I'm saying? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, it depends. If you've been if you've known Jordan or known me in the past, I'd say a year ago, maybe, when I was kind of more active in producing my art as Mike Mcfly. You probably know me from that previous artist name. And then I guess we're kind of in the next phase, which is Mike the Saint right now. But, you know, kids still calls me Mcfly, and a couple other people do too. So I'll forever be that. That'll be definitely immortalized. But outside of that, as he mentioned earlier, first and foremost, I'm a child of the King. That's first and foremost. And he equips me to be all those other things that you mentioned earlier: husband, father, friend, brother, student, everything. That impacts everything for me. So that's pretty much it. A mental health advocate, as you mentioned, currently in my grad program right now. So that's been very informative and life-changing, honestly. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more later. But yeah, man, Jesus in therapy, man. Like that's what my life is consisting of at this point. So I love my life. I'm enjoying my life. I love my family. I love to be a part of new and innovative things. I'm a deep thinker. Yeah, I could go on, but I'm sure we'll get into more a little bit later.
Gotcha.
But I love Christ and I love his people, man. If I could sum it up in one sentence, it's that: two things.
Gotcha. And for my next grilling question, because I never got the chance to ask this.
I already know. One of two, which is coming right now.
All right. If you had to pick a favorite Disney princess, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which favorite Disney princess would that be, my brother?
Easily, without a doubt, Moana.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And
you know why?
One you've had time, because
but you know why though?
Want to know why? I'll listen to why. I'll listen to your why.
Because that's my daughter's favorite.
See, that's
out of all of them, that's her favorite. She has great taste.
Yeah. Mine used to be Pocahontas, but then as I got older, I was like, oh, this ain't good.
That part.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was like, ugh. And you've had time. You've had plenty of time. You probably had a good year of preparation for this next question. If you had to pick a starter 6 Pokemon to go against the Elite 4, what starter 6 would that be, good sir?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Uh-oh. And we're always honest, and we always keep it a buck. Pokemon was not my thing, bro. I'm sorry, bro. Like I do like Pokemon Go. I know, but I mean, I can't get up here and cap. Not for the real That's not fair to the fans,
I feel that. I
That's
feel
not
that.
fair to the fans. I was about to say I was more of Digimon. But I did watch
Oh,
a little Pokemon though. I watched a little bit. I
Digimon.
wasn't too crazy. Yeah, I like Digimon, bro. Yo, look, at one point a brother didn't have cable. So I caught the Fox back when she said I'm fired. Yeah, bro, that's all I had at one point.
Oh man.
Pokemon was for the privileged.
Hey yo, we going there?
Pokemon was on WB on cable. Like I didn't have cable, bro.
Oh
I
man.
had the next best thing.
Now you try to make us feel bad because you just feel convicted in your spirit. That's trifling.
Nah, but if I had to guess, I'd probably put Mewtwo in there.
Okay.
I'd probably put Charizard. Um, mm, yeah, the most evolved, which I think is Charizard. I don't know. I could be wrong. Um, ooh, yeah, man. Blastoise. I don't know how do I say
Blastoise,
that?
yes.
Blastoise. Okay.
Blastoise, yes.
And then from there, I don't know, bro.
All right, all right. I'm a hook you. I'm gonna help you out a little bit. So
All right.
Blaziken, just because Blaziken, like he got the hands and he's that fire. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then you gotta get my man. You gotta get my man Flygon. He looked like a dragonfly, but he did not skip leg day. He has little arms, so it's hilarious.
All right,
And and then you gotta go with Entei, because Entei high key was on some Piccolo energy as a Pokemon, but we'll get into that another day. That's a separate nerd culture podcast. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
But yeah, man. One of the reasons I want to bring you on here, one, because like I said, I've been trying to kind of paint a picture, because one of the questions that somebody asked me on the pod a couple nights ago was am I writing a book and everything like that. And I've been telling people my podcast is my book. Me giving people an idea of my thoughts, my emotions, things that concern me, things that hurt me, and everything like that. This is my book. This is the book in which I'm not even writing, I'm just narrating my life to people. And me being able to share the people that are important in my life, that is part of my story. So if you can kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, go as far back to the beginning, brother. Tell us what the developing stages or early development, refining, if whatever, as far back as you can go, to the Mike the Saint story. You know what I'm saying? Talk to me about that a little bit, brother.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a military family, so I spent most of my formative years in Oklahoma, which is always interesting when I bring that up, because the number one question by far that I get is, "There's black people in Oklahoma?" That's the number one question. Yes.
Now the basketball team and the football team, well, the college football team, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and so I spent most of my formative years there. I was born in Hawaii, but I left when I was 2 years old, so I don't really remember a whole lot there. But yeah, I was just always a super quiet kid, very observing though. My mom always used to tell me that, like when I was younger, and, in my adolescence, that I, not to get too churchy, but got the gift of discernment. That's what Mom Dukes told me. I remember her telling me that as early as my daughter's age now, which is 7, that I could always kind of pick up whatever you may call it, vibes, spirits, not spirits in terms of like the paranormal, but like spirit in terms of like your spiritual, like your well-being, like whether you're depressed, or happy and stuff like that. Always able to kind of pick up on that. More of a heightened sense of awareness with that. But yeah, outside of that, I wasn't really like a troublemaker or anything like that. Not at least in my more early formative years in my adolescence, but in my teens and stuff like that, yeah, for sure. we definitely went through some growing pains there. But yeah, man, I guess you'd have to ask me specifically what you wanted to know in terms of, because it can get pretty broad. It can go a lot of different ways, bro.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you were born in Hawaii and then
Mhm.
spent most of your years in Oklahoma. So stretch of time where we talk about Oklahoma. Are we talking like elementary school to like high
Yeah.
school? Like what we talk about?
Yeah. We're talking elementary to all the way to high school. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't we start
To
there
my
then?
to my first year of college.
Okay, so why don't we start there then? Talk to me about what life was like. It's funny because people ask, "Are there black people in Oklahoma?" Talk to me about what it was like as a youth in Oklahoma. I would just say, like, did what life was like in Oklahoma impact your experience by any means?
You know what's funny is that I could probably give you a regional example that you're familiar with, that you could immediately probably get the gist of what it was like living in Oklahoma, at least the small military town that I was living in. But I know you got fans listening from everywhere, so they're not going to be too familiar. But it was kind of like it was very like it was kind of a very like desolate place, man. And that sounds obviously that sounds kind of like a paradox in terms of when you have a military town, right? You think of, well, I guess it's kind of like Aberdeen, right? Like you have a military base there. Um, this is Maryland for all the people that are outside of the region of Maryland right now. But it was kind of like that. Like you would assume that being that there was a military installation, normally, the money from the economy kind of there's this crossing of the exchange of capital and economics and stuff like that. So you would think that that would reflect in the city, but it didn't, as it doesn't in Aberdeen, apparently. So yeah, it was a very, and I bring that up to say that we got into a lot of trouble just off of sheer boredom because it wasn't a whole lot to do. There was like one mall, but it was like one story level mall, and it wasn't really the best or the most recent up to date shopping stores. Like we'd have to travel an hour to see that. So in one sense, it kind of seemed very rural, but in another sense, it wasn't. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, it wasn't a whole lot to do. The interesting thing about Oklahoma, believe it or not, is that at least in Lawton, Oklahoma, shout out to Lawton, Oklahoma, 580. But there was a lot of gun violence, man. A lot of gun violence, a lot of gang activity. Again, you're getting that influx of different cultures, different ethnicities, different socioeconomic backgrounds that are migrating into this one area that already doesn't have a whole lot going with it. And it creates a bunch of pockets in the city in terms of poverty. And that's kind of how it was, man. Like you either played sports, did music, hustled, or you were involved in some type of gang activity. That's kind of the ins and outs of the city. We called it a trap before that word even became not before it became super popular. But that kind of dates me obviously right now. But before it kind of was more popularized, that's what we considered. That's what the town was literally known as. Like if you make it out of there, like you're good. And again, not in terms of just like sheer violence per se, like just off of the lack of opportunities, right? Lack of jobs, lack of resources, so things of that nature.
Gotcha. I've always wondered where the 580 come from. That was actually, if I did have one question, because I usually freestyle these. So I don't think I told you I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas.
Okay.
So my area code is 316. So and I do know, at least for the Midwest, that it's I always tell people, like, because one, people are like, you're from Kansas. What country is that? I'm like, America, nigga. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then they're like, the next question is, there's black people in Kansas? I'm like, there's black people everywhere. We were the first round draft pick to build this country. What are you talking about? Like, and I kind of understand like the paradox in which you speak of, because it was never to explain like the Oklahoma experience. That means you would have to like stay in like your echo chamber in a sense, and then that be it. Same with like Kansas. Like me, I did not experience racism in Kansas, but it's probably because I stayed within like, you know, within like the black community, stayed within people I knew, or people that I knew in my development would be safe for my development and my refinement and everything like that. So I definitely get that, get what you're talking about as far as like knowing the social climate, and it's a lot more nuanced than just being able to just explain it away to the best of your ability. I definitely get that.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what I meant also. Like, it's a bit more nuanced because a lot of times when people say consider a place as like being serving as somewhat of a dead end, or having some type of involvement with gang activity, I think a lot of people catastrophize their conception of descriptions like this, but it to confuse it as to mean like, oh, this is just basically some hood, you know what I'm saying, some hood spot where you gotta, you know, kind of watch your back, and you see a bunch of, you know, lower income, like subsidized areas and stuff like that. So no, I think that could be kind of a misconception sometimes. Sometimes the trap, sometimes the dead end is just no opportunities. It's just not running into a lot of people that have hope, running to a lot of people that have settled, a lot of people that have given up on their dreams. I think that that's worse to me than external living conditions. I would imagine that for me personally to be worse, to be surrounded by people that don't have hope.
Yeah, I feel that it's that people are like, somebody come from the outside into like your environment or your space could say there's so much better for you, but then speaking that to somebody where they've never seen the other side of the grass, it's like you're talking to me about, it sounds imagination when they bring it to you like this, but to you that's a reality. So I definitely understand that for sure. So one thing I am curious about. So you know, it's funny, I don't even know how old you are off the top of my head, so I'm gonna play around with you and play with your ego a little bit. So so when we're talking about what it was like for you growing up in this time period, because I don't know context for time purposes in dates to year. When did you know, or when was a reality for you that your skin tone or your pigmentation was more than just skin for you? Like when was that moment? What was that aha moment that told you, oh, I'm black? Was there like a certain circumstance? Was there a conversation you had to have with your family? Talk to me a little bit about that realization for you.
Yeah, my first realization of that was it's funny. There's a few distinct memories, episodes that I was reminded of. Oh yeah, like just in case you forgot, it's there and it's not going away. Well, I'll share this one. I was probably around, and there were more times before this, prior to this, but I'll say like this one probably landed the most impactfully on me. I'll say that. So this was when I was 10, maybe. And I had my cousins from South Florida come up to Oklahoma to visit, stay the summer. And what they would normally do is they met a couple guys that lived in my neighborhood, and they lived like around down the street and around the corner. And there was this white guy that lived on the corner, rarely came outside, But when he did come outside, he was like, he's one of those neighbors that kind of has like the keep off my lawn, keep off my grass type signs in the lawn. And so this one particular day, my cousins went outside to do what, their normal routine of hanging out with their friends. And then next thing I know, probably maybe 5 minutes later, they come back banging on the door, calling for my dad. And my dad's like, what's going on? What's going on? And he was like, this white man that lived down the street just called me a nigger and told me that if I come and step foot on his grass again, he's going to take a shotgun and kill me. Sorry, I should have provided the trauma warning on that. But, and all this is happening before me. And I'm just kind of like, wow, just kind of taken aback. Because the weird thing about being in Oklahoma is that the racism is more covert, than overt. Versus being in South Carolina, we can talk about that a little bit later. But it's like night and day in terms of the perpetuation of racism. It's very obvious. Whereas, again, here in Oklahoma was more covert. So you don't really hear too many instances of the covert racism. So to hear that was that made a big impact. To see that somebody in close proximity to me actually experience something like that. It's very terrifying. That's terrifying to have your life threatened. These are teenagers. My cousins were teenagers. To have their life threatened. They're in another they're in another place that they're not familiar with. And so, yeah, that was probably my first impactful revelation that my blackness is dangerous to some people.
Right. And the thing that you said that I think a lot of people don't realize, because you lived in Maryland at one point, so it's in a lot of ways it is like Oklahoma, depending on what area you're in. I think the covert racism is the most dangerous because to me, it's kind of like, I give this analogy, it's like a tumor that hasn't been detected yet, I would say, or they guise it as oh, it's just a headache. You know what I'm saying? You could easily cure a headache, but then they're not willing to give you the medicine, or the person who has the headache is not willing to take the medicine in which to rectify said headache. So it makes you realize the gravity of what it actually is. And it's that glacier on top of the water that everybody's like, oh, it's really not that big. But then you see how big it is under the water. You're like, oh, it really is deeper than people really think. There's a lot more underneath the surface, which really lets you know how ingrained it really is. So it's funny because even though people ask me, you're telling me you didn't experience no racism in Kansas, I was like, I just probably wasn't privy to it, or because these experiences were happening in a time where I wasn't hyper focused, I would say, on these things. Or better yet, I would say I was not in a place of protecting my blackness, so I didn't know what I was needing to protect my blackness from. So I definitely get that for sure. Absolutely. And how old were you again when that happened? I missed a part. Said 10?
No, yeah, 10. I was 10 years old when that happened.
Yeah. I feel that. So you're about 10 years old at this time. You're about to go into middle school. You're growing as a young whippersnapper. You know what I'm saying? You're growing in your youth. I've always been curious because I don't think I've ever actually asked you this. But at some point you had to have caught the music bug. You know what I'm saying? And when I say the music bug, you could be a consumer of music, or you can be a producer of music. You can do something in which that you end up actually procreating music, try to procreate these sounds and everything like that. When did you get the music bug? When did that jump on you? When did you what was it that that birthed this desire in you to make music? When was that for me? Talk to me a little bit about that.
That's an interesting question. As you were asking that, I was really thinking about that. I believe it or not, I think that that's kind of could be an abstract question that kind of requires an abstract answer. And what I mean is like, if by asking me when I caught the music bug, I think of two things. I think of one, there's probably the more surface level answer in terms of when I first started writing music or anything like that. But if I'm thinking about it in another way, I'm thinking about it like, when did you have this awareness, this heightened awareness of this proximity to music, like this that maybe is a little bit closer than the average. Like, for example, my wife, like, she's not really into music like that. She could care less about, like,
she has told me a couple times she doesn't sing, but she will sing.
Right, like she's just you know, she's a consumer. Music doesn't really hold any special weight in her. She has a few songs. We have a few songs together as well too, but in terms of like how me and you probably process and connect with music, it's totally different. So anyway, but do you see where my kind of line of thinking?
No, I get it. That? And whatever you want to expound on.
Let's do both. Let's do both.
Either answer ain't bad. This is, like I said, we share in this space together. So talk to me what you want to talk to me about.
Let's do both. And I might as well just say this now. Not that I was trying to hide it. Like you said, you never really asked, and I never really figured a reason that was advantageous for me to just blurt my age out to you. But I'm 33, man. I'm 33, and I pray the Lord blesses me with many, 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 many more years. I love aging. Aging is dope. I think we need to normalize aging.
Absolutely.
And abolish ageism.
Ageism? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's funny.
And on both sides too. Both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Not just old, but young too.
I had a sister on here the other day. I swear she was like, you might have seen that episode. I thought she was like my age, you know, I'm 27, but then she was like, oh, I'm a cool 30, I'm a young 38. And I was over here like, what are you eating? Are you eating? I was like, I need to know your skincare routine, all that, everything like that. It was a long episode, but go ahead and dive into your answer, Black Dad. Go ahead.
No, you get it. So anyway, man, dude, I can remember the first feelings that I used to get when my parents used to have get-togethers, kickbacks, cookouts, and they used to have, you know, R&B music playing, Luther, and, you know, all the classics. Rap came a little bit later, early 90s, but I do vividly remember the cassette tapes of Pac and Big that my parents used to have. My parents used to have a crazy tape collection, man. I don't even know what they did with all that. I think they got rid of all of that when they got saved. But we'll talk about those type of things later. in terms of the certain forms of indoctrination. But
gotcha.
That's just weird. But anyway, but oh man, I have stories for you with that, man. But anyway, so yeah, I remember like that time being a little bit more like interested and intrigued, and I remember like really paying close attention to the lyrics. I remember at a young age, man, as a young adolescent, I remember having being very inclined towards the words of the music. Of course, I enjoyed the production as well, but I always admired, you know, people like Pac, you know, poetic, and then not just the artistic nature of like Biggie. I remember those being like two things that really stood out in lyricism of Biggie and Pac too. Pac was more kind of poetic, but I think he had layers to his music as well. Yeah, I remember falling in love with music then, and just in terms of like gospel music, right? Gospel music was huge in my home. Like my mom used to wear out Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond, like, all the OGs of gospel music, man. Even older than that. My grandfather was also part of a quartet, so he used to sing as well, and play music. So music is in my genes, bro. Like, music is literally in my DNA. And then later on, when I was about, I'd say I was probably 15. That's when I was like, you know what, I want to kind of give this a try myself. It kind of started with, back in high school, we had like battle rap was super popular. This is like 05, 06.
Oh man.
This is like Cassidy. This is Cassidy. I'm a Hustler coming out. His battles with Freeway. This is Wayne in the early like drought mixtapes and dedication mixtapes, and lyrics are, at this point, and wordplay and stuff like that is very prevalent at this point. That's kind of made a resurgence now, but back then, like, it was all about that. Game, I remember Game with 400 bars and running and stuff like that. So like that was a very popular thing. So we had developed like certain crews in high school, and we would like get together, and like each crew had their own producer, had their own, artist, and we would like parade like we were like some type of label or something like that. And it went from kind of like being playful to us like getting in there, actually like writing music, freestyling, writing lyrics, right? Stumbling all over the beat because neither one of us know how to really construct our rhymes in order to give us the best chances to be able to recite our lyrics, right? We don't really understand beat count like that, but we know it's hip hop, and we have a vision, right? And we know that we just have this love and this passion for it. And so I ended up taking it a lot more serious and further than my friends did. And it just stuck with me, man. Like, at first I was just kind of more of a writer. Later on, I would like actually put my rhymes to the beat, to the production, and the rest is history, bro. It's been an interesting relationship with music at this point, up until this point, I should say.
Mm-hmm. So high school, making music.
Hope I answered your question.
No, you're good. You're good. High school, making music. And then, okay, so you're 33. I'm trying to think of just of what you've told me in the past. So high school, what year did you graduate high school? Just for context purposes.
06.
06. Okay,
06.
So 06. So high school, making music. 06. I'm trying to think who was hot during this time. 06, right before Kanye outsold 50. So that was when graduation was about to blow up and everything like that. Right before graduation was about to blow up. And then at one point, I'm trying to remember what the window of time was between then. But you had enlisted into the Army. What year was that you had enlisted into the Army?
That wasn't until 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Okay. So at one point, if I remember correctly, just from like what you've told me, you actually were like, when I say like as far as music, I mean, I'd like to think you're a big deal. You know what I'm saying? When the way I brag about you and stuff, but you were in your bag a little bit for a good stretch of years. If I remember correctly, just from even off research, before like we had gotten close and everything like that, you had been like touring and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken. Talk to me about like that musical journey after high school and everything, before like 2010, I would say.
Before 2010? I would say once, I think the development of my craft definitely occurred in Oklahoma, between, and when I say the development of the craft, I mean development of developing the language of how to engage in dialogue with an engineer, learning the terminology, right, of engineering, of the vocal tracks, the various types of procedures that happen, that come together to like actually form a song. Like those are my formative years that I spent developing that part in terms of how to write a song, how to manipulate my vocals and stuff like that. So I say that was more of a developmental time for that. When I got to Columbia, South Carolina, I moved to Columbia, South Carolina in 2008. And that's when I started taking music to the next level. Like, that's when I started working on projects. Just the pen was getting more liberated. You know what I mean?
I feel you.
I was more learning about more control of my vocal inflections and just my voice, period. And really honing in and just carving and chipping away to form my own personality, I guess, in music, my own niche, if you will. So that was more from 2008 to 2010 is where I kind of transitioned.
What made you want to move? What made you want to move to South Carolina? Like, what was the circumstance to make you move to South Carolina?
Easy. It was my way out of Lawton. It was my one way out of Lawton. So my parents, when my dad was also, like I mentioned, earlier on in the podcast, my dad was in the military. Well, I mentioned that I was from a military family, but my father was in the military, and he retired. And he wanted to be closer to Florida, but still days away at the time. At the time, and so he felt led to relocate the family to South Carolina, Columbia.
Nice. Now, this is interesting, because we talked about this on the first podcast I had you on, being Black in the military, and we talked about how there's this weird, not even weird, it's by design. There's this weird like recruitment tactic that like military like sects will like tap into certain communities and everything like that as far as recruiting processes go. What made you want to go into the Army? What made you want to enlist?
In short, capitalism.
That's honest. That's honest.
I was working 2 jobs, part-time jobs at that. I had one part-time job that I was working at in retail at JCPenney's. And then that was during the evening, and then by day, I was a podcast editor. Well, radio editor. Sorry, not podcast. Podcasts weren't famous at this point or big at this point. But for radio from my church that I was attending, I would edit basically my pastor's messages, and then prepare it to be radio ready. And that's what I did. So and then I was going to school at that, trying to earn my at the time associate's degree. So balancing all of those, and then on top of that, somewhere trying to have a social life, I was like, yeah, I don't foresee a lot going on here. And so my idea was, let me join the military, kind of establish myself financially, establish myself developmentally, and also be able to propel my music career, more forward with opportunities that could potentially be created from that opportunity. And I wanted to travel. And so, that's why I joined. I'm sorry. I don't have that. Unfortunately, I don't have that story of after 9/11 happened, respect to respect to those that do have that story and that's their reason. I do understand the patriotism that a lot of people subscribe to, but not over here, not with your boy.
Gotcha.
I probably have a lot of controversial takes in terms of people of color, but specifically Black men and women being in uniform.
Hey man, that's fine. We can. This is kind of leading into my next question, believe it or not. So you're about, how old are you around this time? You're about what, 20 when you're going into the military, correct?
23.
Okay, so 23. You said you were editing stuff for your pastor and everything like that. You're going into the military. What was that like going in? Like, well, obviously, you know, I know the answer is so different and more nuanced than a lot of people realize. But what was that for you? Initially going in, coming from what you were coming from, environment, circumstances, and then having ties to the military. But what was that like for you? Going in as a Black man in this country, essentially signing your rights away to fight for the American dream. You know what I'm saying? Talk to me a little bit about that that process.
Yeah. It's interesting because from an outside perspective, when you're having a conversation regarding someone's experience enlisting into the military, signing their rights away, and as cliche as it sounds, that information isn't essentially presented up front. And this kind of goes back a little bit to what you were alluding to earlier when you mentioned about the recruitment process, right? There is a reason why there are recruiters displaced within the United States that are in these, again, rural, remote locations where the population doesn't exceed what like the city of Baltimore or a metropolitan area such as that would have the capacity to contain, right? They pick these places tactfully and purposely based off of research in terms of psychologically, in terms of again socioeconomically. Excuse me. It's a whole method. It's a whole methodology surrounding it. So when you have these kids that are involved in certain negative circumstances environmentally, and they're left to be developed like that, it's like dangling a carrot in front of a rabbit. You don't have the time or the capacity unless you're surrounded by people that not necessarily have gone that route. Because here's the thing, everybody has their own different reason, right? For pursuing whatever career that they desire to pursue. The thing about it is that when you're encountering a lot of people that have had successful outcomes in the military, there is a point to which the idea of one, not wanting to join the military, or two, joining the military and then arriving to a point within oneself that you've completed your time, you've serviced the full extent of your contract, and you are prepared, or you are in the process of making preparations to exit. There is a lot of opportunities for people to participate in groupthink and shared thinking. So much so that to think critically in terms of nuances as to why people, the same nuances that are applied to people joining the military are the same, and this is most times, are some of the similar same nuances that are required for a person to critically think through in order to exit. Because you can't just sign up without critically thinking and expect to have a fruitful career, the same way that you can't just exit the military without critically thinking and thinking that you're going to set yourself up for success. It is designed. It is separated. It contains its own rules and regulations. It is its own entity. And of course you're not told that at first. And a lot of people say, but it's voluntary. Like it's not like it's involuntary. And to that I would say, if you don't have much and you're presented with opportunities that could potentially change your life generationally, it could transcend. It could literally transcend generationally. You don't believe that? Go and talk to people that come from foreign nationals that come here and join the military. Like, it's their dream to come over here and join the military. It's honorable. Not only is it honorable, but it positions their families to be able to sustain themselves. So for that purpose, for all intents of that purpose, I think that is a positive outcome that can come from that. But it is with the price, just like everything in life is with a price. And see, and the price is what I'm upfront about, which is why I would make a horrible recruiter, by the way. my quota would be trash, because I'm going to tell the kids, that the 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds that come and sit down before me, hey, look, this is a decision that obviously you have to make, but I just want you to know, I want you to know what you're getting involved into. Hey, matter of fact, how much research have you done in terms of your decision about about this decision that you're making? If I start to get answers like, not really a whole lot, I just want to get in, and hey, what are your reasons? Let me assess your reasons for why you want to enlist and join the military. I'm not trying to persuade you any way, one way or the other, but I want you to be presented with all the facts, all the options that you have available, should you choose to join or not to join. I think that is a honest recruiter, a recruiter that has an integrity about themselves. I kind of had I had a recruiter that possessed some of those qualities. Some of those traits that I mentioned, that was honest with me. But then I ended up kind of getting switched over to another recruiter. And had it not been for my dad, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier about, if you are surrounded with people that have that shared experience, they can also guide you through the ins and outs of being in the military. But no, to answer your question, they don't, one is not privy to the struggles that come along the journey of sustaining a career in the military. Signing on that dotted line could not prepare you for that, period. Even if I tell you, it's still not going to prepare you for it. It's one of those things that you have to experience for yourself. And not everybody's experience is the same. That should also be said as well. For me personally, I had a beautiful mess of an experience. I'll say it like that. There were some times where it was more beautiful than mess. Sometimes where it was more messy than beautiful.
So it's funny, I would say last year, we've gone a lot deeper into me understanding, because I grew up in a military family too. Like my biological father was in the Air Force. My grandfather was in the army and everything like that. So I've always had like ties to the military in a sense, but I never understood. I'll say like this. The way that they sell this package and in way that you speak of, not only to those that are going in, but the families involved, it's like they are like this chess piece to this game of this game that like America is like playing against other countries in a sense. So you never really understand the gravity of what happens when we think of like PTSD that you might develop depending on if you have to go into combat and everything like that. If you
wait, I gotta stop you real quick.
Okay,
I want to make sure that I heard you correctly. You said in regards to the PTSD, can you repeat what you said?
I'm saying like, well, because I'm talking about, because they'll tell you like, oh, by the way, you might go to war and stuff like that, and then you might see some scary stuff. What I'm saying is the ignorance I had, and probably until talking to you last year when I brought you on the pod, there's so much more into, how do I say this? The modification of what's happening to your mind as early as like recruitment, and by recruitment and then like basic and everything like that. So the thing that I've come to learn, and which is why I love like how this ministry is like opened the door for me to talk to other people. There's something you said last year that I still am trying to reconcile with. But I believe you, and I believe you, and I know you to keep it a buck with me, you know what I'm saying? And that's when you said that in the military, racism in itself is the perfect system, or the way the military is set up is perfectly fit for the military, you know what I'm saying? And when you said that, I started to see things. I started to see things I never saw before when I'm talking to my brothers and sisters in the armed forces, specifically when we're talking about Black and Indigenous people of color that go into the military. How were you able to go into this sect, go into this branch, not just this branch specifically, but go into the military? And though they were trying to, I don't know if groom is the right word. I'll say groom. Groom you to assimilate to whiteness. How did you go through that? And how was that process for you? Trying to navigate in these spaces all while doing what is asked of you, but making sure that this up here, your blackness and everything, is being nurtured and taken care of. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Great question.
Take your time, dog. Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah. It was difficult, man. For multiple reasons. But I want to highlight something that you mentioned earlier. There's this. It is essentially this grooming. It is grooming in a sense.
Okay.
I don't.
And I didn't know if that was like the right word.
No, the term that you're more familiar with, and is probably more neutral than grooming, is indoctrination.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
So there is a technique, multiple techniques toward the goal of indoctrination, like you mentioned before, from the recruitment process. It starts there of the recruiter attempting their best to sell you their product, which is the military or whatever specific branch, because they're trying to meet their quota as well, right? It is as it operates as a factory. One cog missing out of the wheel will not stop the vehicle from moving. You are expendable. And that is something that you are consciously made aware of early and several times. And so, but yeah, there is this attempt of indoctrination in terms of this hyper focus of patriotism. Hyper. We all bleed the same. We all bleed red, white, and blue, and we all bleed. For Army, we all bleed. Army green, and I get it. I think that let me be clear that I do believe that, and evidence also supports the idea of community and camaraderie as being a positive a positive benefit, which leads to like a byproduct of increased happiness and just connection with people. And the military is beautiful for that in terms of this this particular ethno-cultural, like, unique, because the military is so unique and different. It provides you with this, it fosters this opportunity for you to like connect with others that are familiar within your sphere of influence. And so that means a different way of living, right? That means a different way of going about living their lives, a different maybe certain stores that you shop at that are located, on base. On the military installation, I should say, for people that are not more familiar with that military terminology. But that also means a certain lifestyle in terms of healthcare, in terms of social activities, right? Some people that are in the military, like, they are not afforded the privilege to be able to have too many friends outside of the context of the government, the military, because these are people that work in high stressful jobs that are sent on a lot of covert missions and top secret missions and things of this nature. So it's almost like it has to sustain it. It has to remain intact with the indoctrination in order to sustain itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's like the cause and the effect, but they both affect each other.
Yeah. It to sustain itself is you need people to want to participate in it.
Yeah.
And for people to participate in it, you have to have that opportunity. So they depend on each other in itself. So I definitely get what you're saying there.
And at the center is order. Order must be maintained. Order must be maintained. Period. That's how the power is controlled and contained, through order, through rules, through regulation, which is why I made the statement that is controversial to some, but is not controversial in terms of a lot of POC, but specifically Black African-American males and females as well. That is not exclusive to their experience. Like, these are things that, unfortunate situations that I have been made privy to, a lot of people that I've come in contact with. And I was in the military for 9 years. So imagine how many stories that I've personally been involved in and a part of, and then that I've just heard from different people outside of the organization, or that had been a part of your current organization that you're a part of now, and that previously was maybe in your position, that maybe dealt with your particular supervisor that you have now, and that, and so it's unique in that regard too, and that paths cross frequently in the military, based off your job, your career. Like, paths cross. So you will cross bridges that you think that you won't cross again. And so you can see how dangerous that is, and the power of an imbalanced power position in the hands of somebody that is racist. I'm talking about the psychological threatening that could come from somebody that could wield that type of power. This is what I'm talking about. These are the experiences that are real, that are not talked about enough in the military. again, it is an extension of the government. So we shouldn't think, for once, we shouldn't be naive to think that the military is an external entity apart from the government. That's not true. They are an extension of the government. And so
It's
the way
the
that
arms. It's the arms, and it's essentially it's the arms and legs, essentially. So if you think this is the arm, like, you got to connect it to the body. It would be what's the word? It would be wishful thinking, far-fetched to think that this is not connected somehow as far as their indoctrination techniques, is what you're saying.
Right. So when we have pertinent, pressing issues of life and death that affect Black and brown people, we're not going to really address that. We're not going to address those issues until we see what they would call big government address those issues, and then we'll parrot that. We're not gonna address the hurting that are in our uniforms every day. We're not gonna address you. We'll address you when we get the orders down from the top office on down, until that information is disseminated. It's again, of course, are there opportunities for success? Of course. Just like any other profession. That doesn't make it sustainable and palatable for everybody. There was a saying they used to say that we used to say in the military was, get all that you can get out of Uncle Sam, because Uncle Sam's going to get everything, every penny that he invested into you, out of you. And it's true. So
yeah, I feel that. My uncle used to say, I'm gonna say the PG version of this because I need.
Yeah, I said the PG version. Just
yeah. My uncle used to say you need to, as Black men in this country, like, you need to know what's happening with the government, because whatever decision they make is going to impact us first. So he used to always say, you need to F politics before politics F's you, because because they will get theirs. You need to make sure you get yours. So I definitely get that. So okay, so this is about 2010. You're in the military, and I'm trying to think of like how to segue in this conversation when we're on the subject of Blackness and nurturing your Blackness in the military. So 2015 going into 2016, and we switch chiefs, essentially. Barack Obama's out. I'm not saying 45's name on my podcast. This is my podcast. Talk to me a little bit about what the atmosphere was like for you. And if I'm not mistaken, if knowledge is correct on this, are you in Maryland at this time when when they switched seats, essentially?
Yes. No, I wasn't. I was in Fort Gordon, Augusta, Georgia, when this happened.
Okay. All right. So talk either or. That's not necessarily important, because it'll lead into my next question. Talk to me a little bit about what the temperature was like when they switched seats, essentially. What was that? What was the atmosphere like for you within your unit? Within, like, yeah, just talk to me a little bit about like what the atmosphere was like for you in the Army, in the military at this time, while still nurturing your Blackness with such this drastic change, I would say.
I have to be honest and say that I wasn't nurturing my Blackness at this time, or at least not consciously.
Okay.
Thinking about it in those terms, I would say that I was more so consciously more aware of the unique experience of my Blackness, of navigating with my Blackness throughout the military. That sometimes had ups, sometimes presented moderate lows. But in terms of when you say nurturing your blackness, I would say that I don't think I was as conscious of that back then as I am more so now, in terms of being more on top of that. But the temperature changed drastically. And again, one of those leaders that I talked about earlier was one of the type of leaders that I served under. He was racist, and everybody knew it. And prior to old boy taking the office, it was already ramblings of this particular leader, and the reputation that preceded this person that was already going around in the organization. And so we started to, and when I say we, I'm talking about the Black people and the people of color, the Black and brown people that were serving alongside me, very quickly started to pick up on the type of organization that it was turning into with this particular person in a position of power. Mm-hmm. And just as whiteness does, just as white supremacy does, it quickly assumes a position of power, flexes its power to create atmospheres of accommodation and assimilation. And when old boy got in the office, that plan went into overdrive. Oof. And the tension was so thick in the air. You could barely breathe, man. You could barely breathe. And it was kind of like, yep, Obama's out of the office, so y'all got to deal with it. And it's like, who's y'all? Who's y'all, sir? Who was the y'all that you speak of? Where's all this y'all language? What all of a sudden we cowboys now? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's all that coming from?
It was when you're in this uniform, you were, as you said, you bleed green. But right now, I want y'all to know, y'all niggas need to remember that I'm talking.
You may not. We got a whole bunch of. You may not like it, but that's just how it is. How do you know what we like? You never asked us our opinion. Mm-hmm. You never talked to us. You never valued our insight and our opinions, our perspectives, let alone. But now all of a sudden, you got us figured out, right? Know, even though you're right, it's still the caucasity of it all. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
For sure. But yeah, bro, that was not a fun time, man, to be around. It was not like it was like it really kind of felt like, even though I've never been to prison, it really kind of felt like what I would imagine it and what I've heard in terms of like the segregation. Like it's the military is also one of the most segregated institutions I've ever been a part of.
I feel that.
Yeah.
So this is so my next question is, because we've never talked about this. So 2016 happens, and I'm going with this. 2016 happens, and Colin Kaepernick decides to take a knee. That for me was when, I always talk about James Baldwin. To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a state of rage all the time. That's when I realized, probably now more than ever, and I knew it before then, but we definitely live in two different Americas. When we talk about how his stance or his stand while taking a knee, it created this divide. And when I've talked to a couple of different like of my my brothers and sisters that are either active or retired from the military, I've gotten a lot of different answers. But talk to me a little bit about that moment in history while you're active in the military. What that was like for you as a black man, but and as you know this because that's how they're making it seem. Um, they want you to be you're in the army first, but you're a black man in the army. Talk to me about what that was like for you, what was going through your head at this time, and can you speak even to there was like a divide, I would say, and did it get deeper after 45 gets in office, after Cap takes that stance? Speak on that a little bit for me.
Yeah, the division definitely increased. Now that I think about it, I would say these are probably the more primary stages of me consciously attending to my blackness, intending to attending to the nurturing of my blackness, making a conscious effort to educate myself and check the temp in the room more, to check in with those that looked like me, or maybe those that didn't look like me but come from marginalized communities.
Talk a little bit about that because I don't think people realize how important that is. As far as that checking in factor, still expounding on what you're saying, but like really, like I need you to really dive in, especially since you're you're studying about the impact that operating in white spaces and what that does a toll on you emotionally and mentally. Talk about that checking in process. I think that doesn't get talked about enough.
Absolutely. And I try to remain balanced when I'm engaging in conversations regarding the military, because again, not everybody's experience is the same, as monolithic. But one of the positive factors of being in the military is the opportunity and the privilege to encounter multicultural people that are alongside you in this unique organization and lifestyle, really, because it's a whole lifestyle. And so being able to interact with them allowed me to not only, it was not only cathartic for me to process my perspective and paired with my pain of just throughout the years of just historically just being a person of color in the United States, from the trauma stories, and then to actually experiencing it yourself in the military, being able to connect with others, created the opportunity for me to be able to develop the language to be able to check in with one another for people that derive from marginalized backgrounds.
What do you mean develop the language? Like you had to almost speak in a secret language when you were in these spaces?
Yeah, you definitely have to speak in kind of coded language, depending on who assumes the role of leadership. Because I worked in the dental field, so that would be.
That's why you got them. That's why you got them doggone soap bars for teeth. That's why your damn teeth are bright. I've been always
listen, brother. I can get you right. I can get you right.
My teeth are good, but I'm saying like, damn, this brother got some big white teeth and like they just immaculate. Like my goodness, like you out here.
Come on, the Lord and His sovereignty knew that he was going to use me as a mouthpiece, and it had to be right.
Had to get you right.
Had to get me right. That's the one thing that he got me right on. The one thing that's debatable. It's subjective. It's debatable. But anyway, yeah. So you do have to kind of. It is coded, right? Just like code switching. That that happens a lot. I'm still deconstructing that and navigating in white spaces. But what I want to say is that what I want to highlight rather is that when you're in these white spaces. And when I say white, I'm not necessarily talking about the pigmentation or the ethnicity or the racial construct of people being white. I'm talking about whiteness, the system. When you're involved in something like that is self-perpetuated, code switching is a survival tactic. It happens in every. It's a coping mechanism, but the reason why I say it's a survival tactic, the reason why I say that is because you are literally adjusting to ensuring that subconsciously, psychologically, you are not harmed in any way. It's the byproduct of racism before a person of color. And specifically a black male and a black woman that experience racism on astronomical levels compared to other POC. It is a survival tactic. It is an inherent tactic that has been downloaded literally into our genetics post slavery. There's a beautiful book that me and you have talked about before, by the way, just to plug this in because I think it's important, by Dr. Joy DeGruy, called The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. If you are a black person or a person of color, but specifically black person, this is specifically to us African American descendants from our people that were kidnapped and stolen into chattel slavery or chattel slavery, however you say it. I've heard it pronounced two different ways. I still don't know which one is the right way. But that book, you definitely have to read that book. I 100% recommend.
Just plugged it into the comment section for them on Amazon. So
please,
I got you.
Please,
I got you.
Thank you, brother. Please educate yourself. Do yourself a favor and pick up that book. And it kind of explains these things of how trauma travels genetically. So anyway, back to checking in, having a code, developing. Sometimes also that code could consist of language in which we exchange in terms of being from those marginalized communities, that telepathic in a sense, right? That we're able to pick up on the whiteness in the room and how it just explodes, right? It just fills up the room. And you may not, and you can obviously touch it, but you may not feel, or you may not feel that you hold the capacity or the safe space in order to be able to process that. And when you're interacting with people that, like people that in my unit that I had, and I'm sorry for being long-winded on this. I'm getting to a point.
Nah, man, you good over here. Shit.
Okay.
You know how we get down. You good, bro.
Yeah, I had the privilege of having a person from Kenya as a part of my team, and just seeing how they navigated whiteness and racism, being an international student or a person navigating over here, literally starting from the bottom and earning their American citizenship and stuff like that. And so it's interesting to see the people that assimilate and recoil when it comes to actually offering some type of change or at least some type of pushback. You rarely run into that because of the monstrosity of the system itself. People don't want to take that on, right? People just want to get in, get their check. As long as that check is coming in on the 1st and 15th, then baby, we good. Like, we good. Black Girl Warrior, I appreciate that. Please don't think that I'm censoring myself. I just I'm processing this in real time because I don't get to have the privilege of having these conversations like that. So I definitely appreciate it. But anyway, yeah, like having, checking in is very big. And I want to say something else along those lines is that, and this is a trigger warning for. I learned actually a new terminology from TikTok, actually, unaliving yourself. So this is a trigger warning for that. Unfortunately, I've been exposed to situations that have ultimately led to those unfortunate outcomes and circumstances. And when they begin to investigate the origin of the problem that developed to this person of unaliving themselves, in the profession, we say die by suicide. We have rejected the notion of somebody committing suicide because that actually implies a conscious decision. I think me and you have talked about that before.
Yeah.
But I'm just putting it out there in the YouTube verse. And anyway, what would be extracted from that investigation was the lack of people within that person's organization checking in, asking the questions, asking what we consider oftentimes as simple, meaningless questions. How are you? How is your day going? How was your week? How are you doing? How's your family? Like these type of questions that we kind of arbitrarily just ring off an answer. For somebody that has been dealt a hand that they are exhausted of holding, these questions can be life-changing, literally, life-sustaining, literally. And so checking in is huge. We should check in with our friends, especially the strong friends. Royce the 5'9", shout out to Royce the 5'9". On one of his albums, he had this song where he was talking about that. He said at the end, I never forget it. That's the line that he said. He was like, "Yo, check in on your strong friends, straight up. Check in on the ones that don't talk. Check in, go deeper. It requires you to go deeper a little bit. It requires you not to just settle for the I'm good. Okay, well, tell me something that good that happened this week for you, if you don't mind sharing. I could use a little positivity, a little hope. You know what I'm saying? It's just digging a little bit deeper than just settling for the surface, automatic, unconscious response.
Yeah, and it's one thing I think of too is what I get out of that is I feel like sometimes we don't believe how our human interactions are very shallow sometimes, where even like and I I learned this at both jobs I've worked because I was I used to be a clerk at 7-Eleven and then I used to be a bartender. And when you ask somebody how you doing, don't get mad when they tell you how they doing, because and I say that because sometimes we just use it, like as you just said, it's very unconscious in a sense, but there's somebody that needs you. There might be somebody that needs you to like ask that question. And not only do they need you to ask that question, they need you to not ask that question in passing. Like, unless you're willing to park, don't ask that question. It's something that I've learned to really take advantage of, because you may not know the last time somebody asked them that question. and you may not know the last time somebody asked them that question and they stayed to hear an answer. So I think that is, I'm right there with you. Well,
you know what's interesting that I just thought about as you were saying that? You know why a lot of us ask these questions in passing and we're not truly prepared and really truly authentic in our concern is because it requires a substantial amount of energy to do that. And I think about Jesus, how he would heal people, speak to a crowd, and then you would always see after that, go rest. You would see him resting. You would see him telling his disciples to, hey, go and rest, or go meet me, go get in the boat, meet me on the other side of, that's because we see him resting, because it's truly exhausting. Not exhausting in a negative, having a negative connotation, but just this is the result of truly caring for people. That because love is action. Love is an action verb. It requires action behind that, and it doesn't exist apart from that. And so I echo your sentiment. Like if you ask somebody how they're doing and they have deemed you a safe space, take advantage of that opportunity. Take advantage of the opportunity to connect with somebody and develop active listening. Develop your skills of active listening. That's something that a lot of us don't necessarily focus on. Casper, what you have here, whether you're conscious of it or not, or cognizant of it, is that you now have an increased level of active listening skills than the average person does, because your platform allots for those opportunities. You're exchanging in dialogue with people. You understand what I'm saying? And so active listening is like a muscle. Like when that skill is untapped, when it's not worked and developed, then you're severely lacking in that skill. And so that's something that as a therapist, that a lot of the relationship is hinged upon that, your ability to actively listen. And active listening, all active listening means that you're in tune, you're inclined, you're invested in the exchange that is before you. That's not just throwing out a arbitrarily, hi, how are you doing? Hope your day went well. Like, don't get me wrong, there's people and times that permit for that. But for the sake of our conversation, that thing about connection, everybody has heard of, or most people have heard of, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which, by the way, fun fact, a lot of people don't know, he co-opted and hijacked that from an indigenous person. And I'm sorry that I do not have the name of that indigenous person to which that theory belongs to.
Well, we got some brainiacs in the comment section, so they got no problem dropping the links.
Yes, please drop that. Please drop that. But so we can give credit where credit belongs. But at the bottom level of, so basically, for those who are not familiar with the hierarchy of needs, this is a theory that is created to be able to address 5 hierarchical identifiers within a person, within a human being, that every person universally needs. And at the bottom of that list, and the bottom meaning like the first and foremost, and at the top being self-actualized, like self-actualized meaning that you are at your best state in terms of morality, in terms of spiritually, psychologically, physically. At the bottom of that is security. And along with security encompasses, if security is an umbrella term, underneath security is connection, loving people, meeting people's physical needs, meeting people's financial needs, right? Advocating for people. These are at the starting base level of needs that we all have. And so when you're talking about checking in with somebody and connecting with somebody, you never know how you can make an impact on meeting somebody's basic level needs, core needs.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a switch it up a little bit because I've never asked.
Did it get too like dark or too?
No,
okay,
not at all. This is good. And like I said,
okay.
This is more for, even though I'm sharing this with the internet, this is more for me and you know what I'm saying? But this is something that, because I'm using this time to because I think it's important when we're talking about your story and how it's shaped you into you. So this is good. This is excellent. I did not ask this question, and I've never asked this question before, but I'm curious because like I said, I've never asked this question, and I know what color the ice is. I don't know like how deep it is and where it goes, but I mentioned not only are you a father, but you are a husband. How did you and your lady meet? Talk to me a little bit about that. And like how did that come into? Because I met your wife, you know what I'm saying? She's spicy, first off. I mean, like, just from the stuff you told me that she says, I'm just like, I cannot I get a kick out of it. And I would just love to hear how this where this story has began and what it's come from. But talk to me a little bit about meeting your lady, dog.
Yeah, so my first duty station in the military was in Italy, and I was 23 when I was 23 at my first duty station, and I was actually we used to get what was called these like 4-day weekends where we were off Friday and Monday, and these were kind of like our travel, opportunities to kind of travel. There was like this little cheap, little local airport, and they had like these cheap flights. Like it was like the Europe version of Spirit, except not as terrible.
Hey, yo.
Think of and again, I'm not too familiar with the flight industry and stuff like that, but just think of like a mid-sized version of an aircraft of Delta, but financially affordable like Spirit. It was like that. It's called the Ryanair for people that are interested. I don't know why I just plugged that, but anyway. So I used to basically take those flights. We just picked somewhere to travel in Europe and ended up going to Croatia with a friend of mine. And we mentioned earlier about touring, and my first tour was actually in Europe. That was my first tour. And so we toured multiple countries from Germany, Croatia, Switzerland. And the first major festival that I was a part of was the Fresh Island Festival. Anyway, before that, my first time going to Croatia on more of a business trip, I actually met my wife there. So we just began to form a friendship and build off of that. And she would come see me, I would come see her, and we just kind of stayed in touch for a while. It was I guess it was considered a long distance relationship, but we would see each other frequently. That's the origin in short of our story. I'll spare you all the details.
Oh, you're not off the hook yet, dog. So my next question is, because I remember you made a TikTok about this, and I think this is important because
I know where this is going.
Oh yeah, you know where this is going, dog. So your wife is from Croatia, correct? If I'm not mistaken. Yes. Okay. So needless to say, like, she is not a woman of African descent, obviously.
No, she is not.
would he even classify her as a woman of color?
She
Talk
is
to
not
me
a
a
woman
little.
of color.
She's not. I remember the
She is
conversation.
European descent. Period.
Not dogging you at all. I'm just.
And she
I just
is a
remember.
rare.
Yeah, I'm saying. That's all right. She treats my brother right. You know what? As long as she don't put raisins in a potato salad, I don't really have anything else to say.
No, absolutely not.
but
Absolutely not.
So talk to me a little bit about, like, because we were talking about the importance of nurturing your blackness and everything like that, and then checking in. I don't think people really realize, I guess, like, I would say, like, the love and security, especially that a black man needs in this society, in this world, I would say. But talk to me a little bit about, if there was any hurdles. Talk to a little bit about what that looks like for you guys, what it looks like for, or better yet, what it looked like for you early on, and how it developed into what it looks like now, considering she literally cannot relate, but
Right.
you took a step, you made and I was right there with you. I was like, boy, don't get me started. But talk to me a little bit about some, I guess, that as far as her being able to nurture your blackness, you allowing her to nurture your blackness, being essentially a white woman, we'll say European, because we'll say she's a white woman. All right. But talk to me about her nurturing. I love you, Indy. But talk to me about what that looks like, what that looked like for you guys early on, and what that has developed into now.
Yeah. I'd say in our formative years, in terms of like early on in our dating, it posed less of an issue being in Europe, obviously, but still there were definitely moments and multiple conversations exchanged between her and I, in terms of my blackness, but specifically how that presents itself in the States. This is post us actually getting serious about doing life together and stuff like that. Obviously, early on when we were dating, prior to transitioning into that stage, there were multiple moments being in her country, of being in predominant white space, that I was just super uncomfortable with, that she picked up on immediately and was like, like, you're a dark skinned man and your face is like flushed, like pale at this point. Like, what's going on? like, are you okay? Like, is there? And there was this one incident where, and it's funny because I got her back for this kind of, well, not really, but kind of.
Oh God.
But anyway, let's just say she had her opportunity to experience, to walk in my shoes, if you will. There was one time where she took me, and she lived in the capital city of Croatia, and so she took me to the center square, which would be, I guess, equivalent to like downtown of any metropolitan area. So this is a place that, you know, essentially has like a lot of people in one area, a lot of white people in one area, and that was probably one of the first times where I had personally been surrounded by that many white people in one area at one time, and just, as far as the eye could see, just nothing but white people. I was just like, yo, this
You were
is
the black,
wild.
you were the black Where's Waldo in the room, basically.
I was like Neo and walking in a sea of Agent Smiths or something, bro. Like, it was like, it was weird, bro. Like, people were staring and looking at me, and it wasn't this like look of like, at least my perception at the time was like, it wasn't this look of like disgust and like, you know, what are you doing here in our city, you disgusting, dirty, you know. It wasn't that type of look. It was more of a look of like curiosity. And intrigueness about it. Like you're different. Like obviously you're not from here, but like I don't know. I felt like an endangered species or something, bro. Like you never know when you get a chance to see one of these again. Like that, I felt like
Oh
that.
my God.
It was kind of like that, low key. Like at least by the stairs, you know. And so I was like, yo, I need to get out of here. And she was like, okay. And then we ended up talking about it, like what happened. And I now know that was what I was experiencing was called a phenomenon called racial battle fatigue. It's essentially when you are a person of color, and you are in predominant white spaces, you get this heightened, increased sense of security, in terms of your surrounding. And then on top of that, I was already a soldier, a military soldier, and they also teach you about navigating and being mindful of your surroundings. So I already kind of had that heightened sense of awareness of my surrounding environment, but that's doubled now as a Black man in this in white space, and being in this predominant white space, especially the first time being in this type of predominant white space
where they make white people essentially, like cooking them up just cooking them up in the lab,
the Mecca. And so I'm going through the gambit of implications at this point. Like I'm experiencing the anxiety. Oh yeah, Prague for sure. I'm experiencing the anxiety. I got, kind of the increased heart rate at this point, the shallow kind of breathing a little bit. I'm not having a full blown panic attack, but like I said, my head is kind of on the swivel at this point. My body is reacting as if it's kind of in danger, could potentially be in danger. And so that obviously led to multiple conversations, and she had never been to the States before. So all she knew, and what most foreigners know, is what they see on the television, right? Which hurts us in a lot of ways, because perception for someone is reality. And when all you have access to is the news and the most popular movies and stuff like that, and then you already know how Hollywood portrays us. This is the image and the impression that one could be left with, that is not privy to the nuances of those situations outside of that. And so we had early on. I'm thankful that we had. I'm thankful that we had multiple conversations, and her being able to be alongside me, that maybe at the time she didn't understand what was going on, but she cared for me and knew me beyond the obvious of that I'm a Black man. I'm a dark-skinned Black man at that. But also being able to take advantage of the opportunity to learn, based off my reactions, that she's physically seeing with her own eyes. There were multiple times like that. Again, multiple conversations. She walked alongside me, because I think when she got to the States, that's when, rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. That's the height of when she first got to the States. That's what occurred. I'll never forget that. And she was just heartbroken, and enraged, alongside my family, watching that. And she's just like, I just can't believe that this type of stuff happens, like in the States, and still happens now, like racism and stuff like that. But I mean, it's been a journey for her. It's been her learning her whiteness and learning her privileges that come with that, and having to deconstruct and unpack, and pursue this path of being anti-racist is something that she's devoted and committed to. And bro, I'll be transparent with you. Like at first, early on in our marriage, like there were some insecurities attached with being with her because
from her or for you?
For me, dating outside of my race. She's actually the first person that I dated outside of my race. Ironically,
oh, man. God was like, I got one for you in Europe. You heard me? Like,
right. We're not even gonna get into the millions of prophecies that I received from multiple people in terms of me getting married. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. And so anyway, it's been an honor walking alongside her. She's my wife. No one can love me, obviously, aside from the Father. She's a close second, man. And we've always had this connection, this deeper spiritual connection that was just rooted in love, has remained in love, has stood the test of trials and tribulations in love. And obviously we still have more to go forward to encounter, but it's hard to articulate the words with which my wife loves me. I tell her all the time, like, of course, growing up as a Black person, like, there's multiple degrees and ways in which you encounter Christ, and in which you are introduced to Christ, culturally, is specifically what I'm talking about right now. And then you meet those type of people that really remind you of Christ. You don't meet these type of people a lot, but those people that you do meet that, like, man, like, this is very reminiscent of what I read Christ to be like in the scriptures, of, like, you just imagine it's like that tangibleness that you just, like, you can reach out and physically touch this person. Like, that, no lie, is like my wife in so many ways that I have encountered Christ in her, that has been able to, like, look in the depths of my heart when I'm at my lowest. Like, this woman has literally seen me at my lowest. Like, the person that's standing before you is a combination of Christ and my wife.
That's beautiful, man. And my follow-up question for that is, because hold
on. I don't mean to cut you off, but I remember this was important because this gets back to your question. I used to be insecure about dating outside of my race, because of the negative connotation that stems from that as a Black
That's what
person.
I was getting ready to get to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for years, man, that's something that, obviously, as a conscious person and a person that's consciously aware of the construct of racism, that's something that doesn't escape you. You have to confront that, at least in my experience. And I would venture to say that those that date outside of their race, and to take it a step further, those who unionize with someone out their race, procreate with somebody outside their race, I think it can be dangerous to ignore your Blackness and that person's whiteness, or, for this particular context. That could be dangerous. And I think that it hurts you more than your partner, because it doesn't create the environments and the atmosphere for you to not only pursue your Blackness, pursue an increasement in learning about your Blackness, but to also be proud of that. to be proud of your blackness. And I'm proud to say that, I mean, if I'm being frank with you, it wasn't an option for me, if I'm being frank, to not be allowed to pursue my blackness. That was a boundary that I've made very early on. But I empathize with others that haven't done that. And I empathize with them because assimilation is real. Assimilation is so real. And it's like a silent lure.
Yep.
I've been involved in it. You've talked about it on your podcast. And so I empathize with them, man, because to challenge that is cognitive dissonance. To challenge that is the classical Aesop fable of the sour grapes. Like, that's a moment that you have to have with yourself. You have to have that moment with yourself to where you're able to honestly look at the trope that is associated with that, dating outside your race as a black man and as a black woman. You have to address that. You have to address the internalizing that comes along with that. You have to be honest with yourself about that, and be able to reach a sense of resolve and purpose as to why you're with the person that you're with. It does require some degree of faith, obviously, that it wasn't just by happenstance or chance that you develop this opportunity to love someone, to become selfless with someone, and to become somebody that gives of your life force to another. I don't think that that's just happens by chance. Not me personally. I think that that's divinely inspired or divinely conceptualized. And so that is so now I'm in a place where I'm no longer insecure about that, because I know that not only do all good gifts come from God, and all goodness comes from God, but I trust that He has a plan and a purpose for my life, and He hasn't failed me thus far, nor will He ever fail me. And He hasn't failed me with the relationships that I have that have been sustained. Whether they have been sustained or not, He has never failed me. It has always proved a purpose in my life. And so I'm proud to stand next to that woman. And I look forward to creating more opportunities to engage in conversations about this, because there are brothers, I'm just going to say it now, there are brothers that are in interracial relationships that have been fed and told and sold the lie that they cannot be black or pro-black, evolve in their blackness, appreciate their blackness, and date outside their race. And I reject that notion. I know some people hold that notion, but I personally reject that notion.
There's a I said it and I caught hell, but guess what? My Father's from heaven. I don't care. So I told somebody that you telling me that I need to, and it goes back to like what I always say about I'm a Christian first and a black man second. Black doesn't come with a morality clause. You know what I'm saying? And I always tell people, I'm not gonna just pick my partner because of what they look like. Like,
Right.
oh, there, look at this, and I'm not trying to like shame like dark skinned people by any means. It's like if your first qualifying act like thing accolade you need is like what they look like, the packaging, but you don't know what's inside the package, I think that's dangerous. And then it's essentially, to me, when you're telling me that to sustain my blackness and to prove my pro-blackness is to procreate with black, love black, only be with black, it gives off a very white supremacy type of vibe for me personally.
Yes.
And it's
I
because
agree.
it's that like how these like Aryan like and when I say Aryan, I'm speaking of like these like white supremacy like sects and stuff like that, the KKK, Nazis, all these things where you're looking for blue eyes, blonde hair, white skin. In this case, you're looking for brown eyes, dark skin, and you know what I'm saying, whatever it comes between. It becomes more about the incubation of black life than it does the nurturing and the sustaining of black life. Like you're telling me that that my wife is an incubator and deduced her and dehumanized her to that, opposed to if I care about her being a person, caring about her being what the hell? It was like a loud car that drove by. But if you're telling me that all she is to me, or the first thing I should look to is her being an incubation, then you have dehumanized her and completely devalued the black woman, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. That's a spicy take. You got a problem with it? Patreon only costs $2 to give you 2 cents. But I just tell people like there's more to me as a black man than just being black and being a man. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I'm not just flesh and bones. That's it. I need to be nurtured. I need to be loved on. I need to be comforted. I need to be counseled. I need to be mentored by my wife. I need to have relation. I need to have a wife that is going to keep me grounded, like some coffee. You know what I'm saying? All that is important, and that doesn't begin and end at skin color. It as we say when we're talking about us being disciples of Christ, that's celebrating the diversity in which that we have with one another. Diversity is not boxed in color, though. You know what I'm saying? And I think we're very, very dangerous when we say that God can only love me in this package, because then we're trying to say that God, you don't really know what you have for me. I know what you have for me better than you have for me. So that's why I don't got time for it. And that may not, that, like I said, ain't popular, but I didn't step into this life to be popular. I came here to be obedient. So I pontificate.
Yes.
Point.
And this obviously excludes our brothers and sisters that date outside their race and look for opportunities to disparage our black women. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
We ain't talking to y'all like that. Yeah, that doesn't involve them. But well said, man. Well said, bro.
So
thank you for asking me about that too and allowing me to speak
all
on
good.
that.
All good. I feel like that's been needed to set for a while. And I know you said white people stay out of this comment section. I want to talk to my people about
absolutely. And it still remains that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So white folk, you conduct
because I want to hear from my brothers and sisters. Like I want to hear their perspective. I've heard that argument. And personally, I think that argument of dating outside one's race, and there being a limit to how you express your blackness, live and dwell in your blackness, navigate in your blackness. I think that there's some merit to the argument of Pan-Africanism when it comes to that, but that obviously conversation actually holds far more nuances than that. What is this?
Brother David, he said we ignore rocket raccoons.
Word.
Word. So my next question, when we're talking on this subject and we're talking about our identity in Christ and everything like that, there was a point in time, I would say, that you, I guess, like, I want to say you reestablished your faith, I would say. And this is what 2019, I would say. Talk to me a little bit about like that journey for you. Like whatever you feel like sharing as far as like what were the circumstances that led up to it, that compelled you to want to make this recommitment, in a sense, to go deeper, I would say, for yourself.
I, 'cause I want to, I want to hear from my brothers and sisters. Like I want to hear their perspective. I've heard that argument. And personally, I think that argument of dating outside one's race, and there being a limit to how you express your blackness, live and dwell in your blackness, navigate in your blackness. I think that there's some merit to the argument of Pan-Africanism when it comes to that, but that obviously conversation actually holds far more nuances I had an encounter with the love of God, with the love of Christ. He truly pursued me, versus the other way around. Even when I thought that I was pursuing him, I really wasn't pursuing him. I was pursuing the idea, pursuing church, pursuing religion, pursuing rituals, but I was not pursuing him. I had a relationship with the church, thinking that I had a relationship with Christ. And when the winds and trials of life blew, which they will, as the wind, as Jesus says in that parable of building on a rocky foundation as opposed to the sand. When those storms of life come, if you're not built on firm, solid foundation, you will fall. But the grace and the love and the mercy of God, that when you do fall, and picking you back up, time and time again, like as popular as the parable of the lost son, the prodigal son, however way that you've come to know it, just resonates so deep with me, man. Especially during that year of 2019. This was the prior year to me making the decision to transition out. And I went through hell, man. Like when I tell you from 2018, briefly 2017, some stints of 2017 to 2019. I won't get into it on the pod. A lot of it's personal, but I went through a very tumultuous time in my life, and I had nothing to stand on but religion and religious practices. That's it. That's what I had to stand on. And deep down,
talk a little bit about that. Because I always tell people I am not a religious person. I'm a relational person. When I talk about the walk of a disciple, and I get that for those that grew up in church but did not grow up with and in him. Talk about the dichotomy of relationship and religion for you at this time.
Yeah, because you're exposed to the institutional practices for someone that grows up in church. And I was that kid. I was the PK, the preacher's kid, that was exposed to the institutional aspect of religion, specifically Christianity, very early on. So I know essentially the ins and outs of church, Christendom, minus the history part, which in certain circles that part is not as popular or is not as prominent in certain denominations. Whereas for others, those things which are of high importance to me now in terms of the historical background of Christianity was not as prevalent, and opportunities were not created for me in the spaces that I grew up in and developed in. And so a lot of it was religion. Now, granted, that's where I met God and that's where he met me. And had an encounter, but I don't know. I look at it's so weird because I don't necessarily, so I came to know Christ at, maybe I was like 8 or 9. And I really believe that I had an encounter with God, so much so that I had a hunger and a desire for his word. I would, no lie, legit, I would go take my Bible to school and try to preach to others. And I was really passionate and serious about God at a young age. And in certain circumstances, I looked like a weirdo because it's like, why is this kid talking about? Why is this 10-year-old kid talking about heaven and hell and stuff like that, right? And just so passionate about God, and like we're supposed to be into, I don't know, Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and all that. And I was interested in all that, but I just really had this intense capturing of my heart at a young age. And that, at the core and essence of my being, that always remained. That always stuck with me throughout my journey, even leading up to 2019, even leading to me walking my own prodigal road of leaving the Father. I always knew that the Father was there, ready to welcome me back with loving arms. Or sometimes, a lot of times, that he was never absent. He was always with me, right? I think that story speaks more to the proximity of it. To me, it speaks more of the proximity of that relationship. Doesn't necessarily mean that God is far away from you, because he's a good father and he's not an illegitimate father. He's there alongside you. I really believe he will never leave you nor forsake you. So I knew, and it was very evident through different circumstances in my life, that God was with me, period. Because there are a lot of situations that I should not have gotten out of, but by the grace of God and his hand. And I had a lot of people praying for me. And I had the privilege of having a lot of seasoned people in my life to be able to help me, regardless if I was too hard-headed to listen and accept the advice or not. The opportunity was always there. And as I matured and developed, like I would recall some of those conversations or moments or instances in my life that at the time I didn't understand the significance and importance of it, but as I got older and matured, I understood. And so that's the value of having seasoned saints, and just even saints and ain'ts, like as Jackie Hill Perry puts it, of just having older people in your life. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so I always had this awareness that God loved me, and that I had this special connection with him. But it was always how I go about pursuing that relationship with him would kind of be just this up and down thing. Like one minute I'm on fire, the next minute when the fire wears down, when the trials hit a little bit harder, then I find myself not as strong. And I think a lot of that is still the Father developing, or was the Father developing me. And I think a lot of that was me not resting in him, still being stuck in performance mode, instead of just really understanding grace. That's something that I'm still unpacking and still learning, and still uncovering layer after layer of his grace. I think it's just so deep that there are certain situations in your life that you cannot fathom and understand grace until you go through whatever that is that you need to go through in order for you to understand that layer of grace. You see what I'm saying? So just multiple layers of grace being uncovered.
I think what that is, though, is like sometimes I think sometimes we drive ourselves mad trying to understand it. And I think sometimes we're trying to get to this place is stop trying to understand it and just embrace it. And depending on whatever you came from, that's always difficult. So I definitely, I get that for sure.
It is, man. It is, especially when you introduce other variables like perfectionism, the pursuit of that. When you implement just the variables that stem from being involved in any religious institution. Sometimes I think as Christians, like we're like afraid to talk about we're afraid to talk about Christianity from a context of the religious institutional aspect of it. I don't know why. I think maybe it feels less spiritual or less. It feels kind of bastardized in a sense, like when we talk about it like that. But there are benefits that come along with that of being a part of a religious institution. There are positive benefits and negative, things that can happen as well too. Yeah, I'm not sure why I said that, but I'm not sure why I went that route. But yeah.
So something that, like I said, I've been wanting to have people kind of get plugged into, like the people that are important to my life, people that I have divine accountability, relationships, stewardship, discipleship, all those things with. Talk a little bit about how you met your boy, you know what I'm saying? Because I think when I speak about some of you guys, they're like, God, I can't wait to meet these folk. I'm like, I mean, like, you probably gonna meet them on a computer, just like I met y'all. That's fine. But talk a little bit about me and you meeting Mike Mcfly, Mike the Saint. My bad. I don't charge me because I use your old moniker. But talk a little bit about meeting your boy and everything like that.
Okay, so I can't remember if the first time we met was actually at church or was outside of church. Because what I'm thinking about, it was outside of church, is what I'm thinking. At probably one of our gatherings, but it was still related to church, obviously. So I think it was probably at our mutual friend's house that we both have. At their house, I think, is the first time that I really got to meet you. And even if that wasn't the first time, that's the first time that I remember actually getting to know you, who you are, outside of the context and the four walls of church. Some of the things that you liked, we had multiple conversations about music. Obviously, that's one of the first primary stimulants to our development of our relationship was music, man. That was one of the things that was told early to me about you. People try to hook up and connect the artists all the time in church. And sometimes, majority of times in my experience, that hasn't necessarily been a good look because it's like,
yes, absolutely.
I don't know. And then you like get to a place where you're like, I really don't even want to tell people anymore that I do music, like, because that literally always happens. But it just kind of slips out somehow. But anyway, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that you aren't trash. And I mean, if you would have been, that's fine.
Thank you. I mean, that makes me feel that's hilarious. He said it was. I was happy to. I'm happy to realize I'm not trash too. That's great. That's
yeah. I mean, and not only just that, like that. You're a lyricist. You have a particular appreciation for the craft that I also share and echo those same sentiments. So it's not just that. It's not just the skill level, but it's multiple levels of things that me and you relate and connect on in terms of music that maybe the average consumer nowadays, your age and under, probably doesn't really care about and connect with. So it was beautiful just to have that. It felt very nostalgic with you. Even though we're not too far apart in age, but it did feel like very nostalgic. Like we knew each other like before. It didn't really feel as foreign and much of a strain as other relationships that I've encountered with people or other opportunities that I've encountered with people, if that makes sense.
One thing that I actually really
What's your first memory of us?
So I'm socially awkward. So I hate when people ask me this question. I remember it was like fresh after church.
Okay.
And this mutual that we're speaking of, it was just like, hey, they make music. You make music,
Mm-hmm.
be best friends. And when this and when you speak of this, I guess like I feel like sometimes, and we talk about this every so often, is like, especially when we're in like these evangelical spaces, is like people will tend to identify you
By your
as
gift.
like your craft and your talent
Mm-hmm.
and your gift, but then that's it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I was so it had nothing to do with you, but for me, I was just like, I'm more than a rapper and make beats. Like I always get kind of turned off to introductions like that, but I would definitely say it was a slow burn for us as far as like establishing intimacy with one another. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I was gonna say, which I love about you and my relationship is though we are both musicians, though we are both you need to start making more beats because you don't give yourself enough credit. Personally, I'm just gonna say that out loud. But
Oh,
you
wow.
know, I am as somebody I'm very confident about myself as far as making beats. And when I say that I am pleased by what you have come up with, you got they're your roses, you know what I'm saying?
Word.
But
Thank you.
no problem, my brother. But for me, I think what I love honestly about our well, I don't know why I said honestly, like I wasn't being honest before. But what I love about our relationship was though that was the introduction, you and me, even when we talk nowadays today, it's very rarely about music. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
And I think sometimes as creatives, we tend to look at people as artists, but forget that the artist is a person.
yes.
And I think once I got past that awkward stage where I was just like, okay, well, I don't know if he's only going to want to bang with me if there's music involved or something like that. But once we established that level of intimacy where it was like, okay, we can talk about other things besides music. We could talk about how these songs, matter of fact, make us feel, not just the product of it, but like the building process of these things. Um, I think that's where I would say like we started to learn each other's love language a tad bit
Mhm.
through the connection of music, but the foundation what isn't even music. I would say like me and your relationship is like music as far as connection with us, like it's probably like the sprinkles of the cake of our relationship. There's so much more in which that we've been able to um cultivate and steward a relationship with. And I always tell people like though it's great being a musician, I'm more turned I'm more interested in getting to know the person I'm going to be working with because I want to connect with the creator of the content creator, not the content of the content creator, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I would definitely affirm and agree with that. In fact, I would even go as to say we don't even hardly talk about music at
No,
all.
not at all. And a
And
lot
I
of that is
love
because your
that.
boy has been like retired for a couple of years. But
Yeah. And I'm not active as well. So I love that, man. But even with my friends that are more active, it's interesting because the commonality between all of us is that neither one of us talk about music like that. It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like one of those things that what's understood doesn't need to be explained, but it's also a
yes,
reason. It's also a reason
that
why
part.
I hate being asked that, or hate is such a strong word. I get highly annoyed with people, especially in church, finding out that I do music. It's not one of those things that I like readily share for people.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why is what you said is like most of the time, either the gift is if either the gift gets hijacked or there's some pressure that comes with the exertion of the gift.
Mhm.
Um, and it's hardly ever about the person.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like I really connected when you said that. And I think for us, and correct me if this is not how you feel, but for me, how I process that is like, dog, if you don't understand the pain that comes with being an artist,
Mm.
I just heard a quote that Toni Morrison said when she said, I suspect that that the artists that do not that do not talk about issues that affect the world, I suspect that they are happier. I suspect that those people that those artists that don't do that are happier people. And I connect and resonate with that. Is when you are conscious, and especially if your music comes from a place from the core of who you are, and you're giving that to the world, um, which is obviously subjective, right? Because somebody that to me and you may think, a surface level, maybe they're giving their core of who they are as well too. But I'm talking about music that transcends multiple spectrum of feelings, right? Music that transcends sonically, music that resonates and connects with people, music that is a social commentary of the world around them, music that is a social commentary of the psychological aspect. Like, these are things that the common consumer is not really privy to, and when they are privy to it, it more enhances their weird fetishization of the artist, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Like,
yes, it's very dehumanizing. Oh my God.
Dude, it's so weird, man. And it's like, dude, you don't even really want to talk about that. And so, like, that is one of the things that, now that you bring that up, that I was very appreciative of you about, because I'm like, oh man, I hope this dude's not gonna always just want to talk about music all the time and like be so assertive with trying to like do a record and stuff like that. Like, I appreciate us just building and doing life to the point that when the opportunity, because I say when, because I think it will come for sure. But when the opportunity, well, at least I'm putting it out there, when the opportunity presents itself for us to collab, whether it's directly, indirectly, or whether it's through song or through maybe ideas or something or whatever, however it is, it's going to come from a place of genuineness. Like you said,
Yes.
it's going to come from a place of, the character of this person, how this person leads their lives outside of the music. And that's something that takes time. It takes time to really build and get to know that, which is another reason. But also, like, between artists, like, we understand the fortitude that it takes to and what it pulls out of us to be artists, especially the type of artists that we are. And that goes beyond just music. Like, we're artists. If you're an artist, it's not just limited to one medium. You are an artist. You see the world different. You process the world different. There is some type of component of artistry to anything that you put your hands to. It's not just music per se. It's not just limited to that. So that is one thing that I was very grateful about, that we never felt the pressure to create and make an opportunity happen. We just,
You know what it is?
go ahead.
I've noticed is sometimes I've noticed, especially when it comes to like Christian artists, we think because we're not collabing together, we're not fellowshipping together. I know that's a dirty word for people in the comment section. My mentors in the comment section, he's like, I hate that effing word. But that's so real though, because I've noticed that it's like, if we're not always talking about music, then it's like, do we really even have a gift? And then if we don't really have the gift, was it really from God? And it comes to this this one, and not that I've ever viewed myself this way, but when it got to the season where I call it the dry season of being an artist, when KB said, I want to be more Christian than rapper, that for me was when I was like, if I'm a Christian rapper that's not making rap music, am I still a Christian? And if I'm a Christian rapper that's not making rap music, am I still concerned with making connections with people who are also Christian musicians, but not because of their making content? And I think that's why, because in that season of my life, I'm still kind of in it. I was pulling away from music because that was, I guess, where deconstruction started for me, where it was like, if I'm not making music, am I still his? You know what I'm saying?
Because your identity was a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when I wasn't making music, when the dry season happened, I was really like, God, am I doing something wrong? Am I broken? Is that and the third? And it was nice to also, as you said, it was nice to be able to talk to somebody that was interested in the rapper more than the raps he was making. You know what I'm saying? So it was a, I'll say like this, there was a reciprocated I see you without us ever having to say it. And I think that's what was beautiful about us make, like, you know what I'm saying, like establishing intimacy with each other, because though yes, with this mutual that was like, ooh, y'all be best friends, but then it grew into something where it was like, this is literally like, this rarely gets talked about. It was nice that God used our gifts and other people to connect us, but that's not what keeps us connected. And I think that's what's beautiful about it, honestly.
That is beautiful and well said, brother. And I'll take it a step further to say that I think we both have found more effective ways of having whatever conversation that we would normally attempt to have through music. Because make no mistake, music is a conversation. You are on the receiving end of that conversation. What you receive from that message on the other end of that is what you receive, and how you respond to that is your choice. But a lot of the times it is simply a conversation. I think for me, and it seems evident to you, but maybe you might feel different, but it's just the impetus for me to continue to make music, at least right now where I'm at the rate that I was going, is a lot lower for me right now. And when I really assess that and really think deep about it, I think it's because I was trying to have a conversation with maybe just myself, who knows, in my music, and attempts to connect with others. But while working through therapy and becoming more honest with myself and pursuing myself in terms of loving myself, I figured out how to have those needed conversations differently. Maybe one day I'll feel led to let other people in on that conversation through music. But I no longer, because I went through that phase too, where I think it's when you don't have boundaries in place, and in this particular conversation, more prominent and more prevalent spiritual boundaries in place, to distinguish the gift from the giver, from the one who holds the gift, possesses the gift. When you don't do that, I think it is inevitable for your identity to become incestuous with the gift. And we see it all the time. It's running wild and rampant through the church. And so God in his grace, like, gives us opportunities to create that distance and space from that identity, so that we can shift our focus from looking at the gift to the giver. And if we love and appreciate the giver, then we understand that the gifts are without recompense, and they're also not limited to one capacity. They're not limited to one entity. They're not limited to one thing. You limit yourself.
Come on.
When you develop that incestuous relationship with that thing. And I did that for years. And I remember when Christ set me free from that, bro. Like, my wife even noticed it, bro. She was like, you haven't mentioned about not being able to write a song, or mentioned or stressed about how many beats you haven't made or whatever. I haven't heard you talk about that in so long. Like, what's going on? And I just have peace. I have peace about it, bro. Because I'm not striving to to get to some imaginary illusion in my mind of what my idea was of success. I realized that my view was severely limited of what I thought success was, and the impact that I thought I was supposed to make. I was limited in that perspective, and so the best thing that God could have done for me is to sit me down for a bit
Say that.
to process my trauma, dog. So that when, if the opportunity comes again, if he gives me the opportunity, then I'm able to speak from a place of healing. And I'm not one of those type of people that that are like one of those people that look down on artists who speak from a place of their vulnerability and pain. I think all of that is necessary and needed to an extent. And I'm not one to gatekeep how one expresses themselves. I think it could be cathartic and have benefits. But ultimately, for me, I want to get to a place of speaking from healing, from a place of healing to my brothers and sisters who hear the words that God gives me, inspires me to communicate. So yeah, bro, I totally resonate with that, what you said.
And this is something that it's funny. This is not a knock against you. This kind of, I feel like, as far as our relationship goes, this was, I think it was definitely solidified last year. So I'd love to talk about this with you, because this conversation has happened publicly, but like we've talked about this obviously numerous times. But you know, pandemic happens last year, everybody's locked in and everything like that. And there was a moment in which, matter of fact, it was after the video of Ahmaud Arbery surfaced, and something in my spirit was like, let me hit my boy up. Like, I feel like I just need to talk to him. And I didn't know, because at that point in time, I didn't think we were kind of there. Personally, this is where my awkwardness was kicking in overdrive. But there was a point where I was like, do I have part of me, even though we're both Black men, we're both, you know, disciples of Christ and everything like that, but also operating, I think what it was for me, because we operate in these like white evangelical spaces. And gotcha. When we operate in these white evangelical spaces, we don't really know if these conversations are okay to have. But there was a moment last year, it was after the video of Ahmaud Arbery surfaced, and I just felt compelled to call you, essentially. And then, you know, when we're talking about, like, you know, why I left my old church, and you were pretty much, though you're in Florida at this point in time, though you weren't in the room with me or even like in the state with me, you were pretty much like walking with me through all of that. And I feel like that's where, like, if there was any doubt before, it was wiped clean then. But talk a little bit about like what that was like, not only with, you know, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, but then, or better yet, I think the better question is, and you hear me say this all the time, what was the battle like for you, going through all of this last year? And something I'm always saying, and maybe I need to coin it, I don't know, being a Christian first and a Black man second in the thick of everything that was happening last year.
Great question. It was definitely I don't know, it felt like in certain circumstances, like it kind of felt like the world was upside down. And maybe not upside down, but it just kind of felt like at this point it was unavoidable. Maybe that's a better word. It was unavoidable to navigate the difficulty and challenges that come with being a Christian, but also being from a marginalized community in this country where the predominant religion is Christianity, with said predominant race and ethnicity. And navigating and having these conversations as a Christian with people within the same faith, within the same religious practice, that one would think would come under and be exposed to, if not the same, similar content that we have access to in the Bible, to which we learn about multiple doctrines of Christ. And you would think from that, one would naively think at the time, which was me, that you would have your brothers and sisters, non-people of color, that could understand or at least attempt to navigate the nuances of these conversations. And what I came across and discovered that those were far few in between. Even outside of the faith, there were a couple heartbreaking conversations that I had with some of my white friends, or people that I, at the time considered friends. Some of them even childhood friends that I kept in touch with throughout the years, that know me personally, have met my family, know my dad has been involved in their life in a very pivotal developmental stage in their lives, and they've seen quote unquote positive Black people in their life. And the conversations that were exchanged with these particular people that I'm talking about was just heartbreaking, man. But also at the same time revealing of where that person was at in life, and maybe where that person's parents maybe held those views before all these years. And just throughout years of indoctrination of these type of racist ideologies, like, you get to a place where old dude is in office and insurrection, and that would come later, but the Ahmaud Arbery's, the multiple shootings, George Floyd, and then you see this big divide. And so for the people that grew up under those type of ideologies, they had every incentive to just fully live and embrace it at this point. And those were the people that I had conversations with. These are the type of people that I had conversations with. And it was heartbreaking. It was some very difficult conversations. There were multiple attempts to try to reconcile the relationships, but there were just some things that just couldn't be reconciled. And so yeah, having those type of conversations, navigating this the divisiveness in terms of being in a predominantly we call it PWI, but predominantly white institution in school. Navigating through that was extremely difficult and challenging of my patience because of the plethora of microaggressions that you get, racial microaggressions that come along with that, being in a predominantly white institution, and just the racial battle fatigue that I mentioned earlier. When issues like this were brought up, because best believe we talked about, the topic was brought up multiple times. When you're going through a program like mine, which is mental health counseling, you better be able to navigate and talk about issues like this that affect the multicultural spectrum. You better be able to talk about issues like this, because these are the type of issues that are going to be presented before you from a person of color. And so having those type of conversations paired with being in an environment where there was a safe space created to engage in these dialogues, to engage in a dialogue around these matters, but to see the cowardice is what I call it, straight up, of people not willing to have that conversation, not having the courage to have that conversation, not willing to have that conversation, not willing to glean and learn from people of color within the classroom, or even to drop multiple complaints on, Black professors that bring these issues up. These are issues that we're supposed to be talking about and become
Facts.
comfortable with addressing our own biases and stereotypes, while also becoming advocates, or learning to be advocates, become advocates for others. And so that was very frustrating to me, not being able to truly express my Blackness, navigating these circles with my Blackness, and feel appreciated and feel in a safe space, feel like I was in a safe space. It just kind of felt like, in certain circumstances, kind of felt like the military all over again, to be honest with you. So yeah, it was frustrating. It was very frustrating, but I was thankful that I had people like you in my corner, to really, actually, you were probably one of the only ones, to be able to fully flesh out, be honest, be transparent, to be vulnerable, to multiple check-ins, like, to how we're doing, or how our mental health is, how we are navigating in our Blackness. I'm thankful and appreciative, because those conversations that we had really anchored me and affirmed me in my Blackness. And I think that that's something that we don't do enough of as Black people, or as people of color, period. But specifically as Black people, affirm our Blackness, or create opportunities to have our Blackness affirmed amongst each other. I think that that's very important, and I think that's something that me and you were able to engage in throughout that summer. But it was difficult. It was difficult. It was difficult, man. I was angry at some points. I was very, very angry. At certain points, I had to ask God to check my heart. I had to check my heart before God and ask God to help me not to hate white people. If I'm being blunt, yeah, bro. So that's where I was at, dog. I'm like, God, look, you got to do something, man. You got to do something, because I'm getting pissed right now at this point. And it's not right, but I know that I trust you. I trust your plan. Yeah.
When we speak of this, and you knew what I went through with our old pastor and everything like that, and we speak about like the cowardice of like Christians that go against the grain on this, what responsibility do disciples of Christ have when it comes to not only just Black, like matter is the minimum, bare minimum, you know what I'm saying? But what responsibility do we have as disciples of Christ when we see injustice like this happen, to the best of your ability? What religious obligation that you can articulate to the best of your ability do we have to speak on these things?
Weep with those who weep. Mourn with those who mourn. Listen. Sit down and listen. Listen to people's stories. Learn how to be empathic. Learn that. Develop that. Because that comes with you allowing yourself to become uncomfortable. People think expressing empathy comes from a place of comfort. It's not. It's literally taking yourself out of yourself and putting yourself in another person's experience as best as you can. That requires you to be uncomfortable. Um, I think about I just think about Christ with us, how we see Christ interacting with people in the scriptures. The woman that was caught in adultery. How we see how what we don't see Christ doing is shaming, or we obviously see him calling out the sin, but we don't see him pointing his finger or really passing judgment. Um, we see him alongside with the woman or whoever it was that he was with, um, that had been notoriously known for whatever given sin there was. We see him in close proximity, intimate. And so this is what we need to, this is what was modeled to us from Christ in the scriptures, of just loving with some. I focus and highlight that first, and I really could stay there as well too. It's just, and I even see how this works even outside of Christianity or just being a human being. Is that when you just learn how to develop an empathic approach, learn how to become an active listener, really sit with people and hear their stories. I think that that is a baseline step that will open the door for for other opportunities to present themselves, if that makes sense. More opportunity. People will be able to see Christ in you by you caring for them, by the way that you love them.
Come on.
So we should focus on that. We should spend some time, first and foremost, being developed in and enjoying in the rest that we have, and the rest and the love that we have with him. We need to have our hearts changed. We need to have our hearts constantly poured into of that love, so that we can translate that love, the love of Christ, to others. I would say that that's an important step, and the gateway to other potential aspects.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you gotta go soon. So if you don't mind, you can give me a thumbs up on the monitors if it's okay. You got time for a couple of quick hitters, real quick? They're quick. They're quick like yet either or kind of things. You got me. Okay. I gotta somehow follow curriculum in this. This is good though. I'm loving this conversation, and we talk outside of here too. So
I'm loving it too, bro.
All good. So people can get to know you on a more humanistic experience. I'm gonna ask you a couple of either or questions. So all right, so you cannot get this wrong, and I'm just gonna ask this one first because I don't think we ever had this conversation, and if you get this one wrong, I might not like you afterwards.
Okay. No pressure.
Popeyes or KFC?
Popeyes or KFC?
You're making me nervous.
I'd say probably Popeyes.
Probably Popeyes.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of either one, to be honest.
I mean, I feel you, but if you had to pick,
if I had to pick, I'd pick Popeyes for sure.
Okay, all right.
Sure.
Okay, there's not a right or wrong answer with this one. Michael Jackson or Prince?
Woo! Ooh. What's the conversation?
Okay. You can factor in musically and performance. We'll do that. Like, instrumentation, all that. You can factor those in. Or just preference.
Michael for his global impact.
Mm-hmm.
And performance, his sheer dedication to the performance aspect of it. But Prince for his artistry and the innovative paths that he led with liberation from the liberation of your masters and ownership. Like Prince, when it comes to that, like, and obviously musicality, Prince takes that as well. So yeah, but Michael for the I don't think there's been an artist alive to date that had the impact that Michael has had that I've seen. I don't think it's even come close. Michael was packing out stadiums and people were in freaking Europe. People were like fainting and passing out. Like, this is 90s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Michael had statues built of him. Like, come on, like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so I appreciate both of them different, and I think depending on the context of the conversation, yeah, that answer could literally go one way or the other.
Depending on the mood too, for sure.
Depending on the mood too, for sure. Personally, I probably bang more with Michael personally, but
gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm not married yet, so I can't listen to some of Prince's songs, but that's besides the point. Okay. Her or Solange?
That's a really good one. Wow. I think I'm gonna go with Solange.
Okay.
I'm gonna bang with Solange. Having to grow up alongside Beyonce and still develop your craft and be so different, but also ahead in a lot of ways than she was of her sister. Let's keep it a buck. Nobody talks about that.
Oh, they don't like me. I said Beyonce. We found out Beyonce was black like 4 years ago, but that's besides the point.
Facts. Solange's been on that, you know, and
yes.
Yeah, so I'm banging with Solange. I just think she's real, and
Okay.
she pieced up Jay.
So, yeah, he was bugging. Yeah, he needed that.
Solange go hard. I like Solange. Like she could put she puts together great albums, and Solange enters the conversation when she needs to enter the conversation, and outside of that, you don't hear her involved much, and I like that. I think that's dope. So definitely 100% Solange.
All righty. Tyrese or Genuine?
That's tough. Ooh, that's tough.
You're married, so you better not get this wrong.
It can go either way though. Tyrese for me.
Tyrese.
I say
interesting.
Tyrese. I'll probably say Tyrese. I think I'll probably listen to his music more than Genuine.
All right. Flats or drums when we're talking chicken?
It depends on the mood, really. Depends on the mood. I have my days when I'm more of a flats person. I have my days when I'm more of a drums.
Gotcha.
Okay. It kind of depends.
Okay. If you got one for me, top 5 East Coast rappers, top 5 West Coast rappers.
Oh, this is dope. I love that. Top 5 East Coast, and no particular.
And the South counts in that on the East Coast. So
the South counts too.
Yes, for the East Coast, yes.
All right, dope. Jay, 3 Stacks.
No particular order, by the way, as well.
No particular order. I'm just throwing these out here. Yeah, Jay. What about Shy? What about Chicago? That's Midwest, but are you considering that as part of the West or the East? Which one?
I go like NBA, which is weird because it's like Eastern Conference. I don't know. That's
okay. All right, cool. All right, so I'll say Jay, 3 Stacks, Lupe. That's 3. Hmm. Hmm. Nah, I don't like his music enough.
I don't even
I
want
was
to
gonna
know.
say I was gonna say M, but I don't really bang with M like that. But like rapper wise, obviously he's up there.
Lyrically cool. Songwriting, he's trash.
Yeah, that's why I can't put him in my top 5. Same with Nas. Nas had a couple that I really loved, but I don't bang with him enough to put him in my top 5. I'm a bit struggling with that last one. I'll probably put Drake might be in there. Drake, he might be up there. And I'll take Ye. I'll put Ye in there.
All right, and then you got
That's East Coast. West Coast. West Coast. That's a tough one. Snoop. Do I gotta put Dre in there? I kind of feel like I have to put Dre in there, right? Let's. I'll definitely say Snoop, K. Dot. Pac. 2 more, right? Ice Cube. Corrupt.
All right. If you could see anybody perform live, dead or alive, who would they be?
Sade. Easily.
Nice. And my second to last question. 5 people you can have dinner with. Your wife can come too. 5 people you can have dinner with, dead or alive. Who's at that dinner table?
Jesus, first and foremost, is at that dinner table. My grandmother, rest her soul, is there. This is a really good question. I feel like we could do like this, like a top, like a 5 people, like from the Bible that you would have there, and then like 5 other people that, you know what I'm saying? Because I could obviously conjure up 5 biblical names that I would want there, but I'll just try to limit it. So Jesus, my wife.
She's already in that, so she's
all
the
right,
pick.
all right, she's not. All right, cool. So Jesus, my grandmother. I'd like to have Martin and Malcolm.
You got one more.
I'm gonna go ahead and draw a line and say I'd like to have Martin. Even though I'm fascinated by Malcolm as well too. And then I got one more, right? James Baldwin.
If you nix Malcolm, that means you got one more.
Okay. James Baldwin and Maya Angelou.
All right. And my last question, and your answer has to be somebody you can get on here, and it could be literally anybody. If you'd like to see somebody on the Kid Casper podcast as somebody I could interview, who would that be? But your answer has to be somebody you could help get on here. It could be anybody. I mean, it could be your mailman, nigga. I don't really care. I'll talk to anybody. So
I have 2.
Okay.
From TikTok, I'd like to see you, and
you know what? Give me 3. Give me 3. I'll take
3. Okay, all right, bet. From TikTok, I'd like to see you.
I'm working on Andrew, by the way.
That was one of them. Andrew's one. There's this one sister that I've been following on TikTok that's on deconstruction TikTok too. I have to send you her profile, but I'd like to see you engage in a conversation with her with her as well too. And the last slot, I'll send her that information to her because I forgot her TikTok name at this point. But I think that she presents a lot of nuances to deconstruction. And I know we really didn't even get into that whole lot tonight, which is fine. But she presents a lot of nuances to that conversation that doesn't lean left or right. I'm not talking about politically. I'm just talking about along the spectrum of conservative Christianity to liberal Christianity, not necessarily political affiliation, but I like her content, and she's like relatively new too. But I think that you will have a great conversation with her. So I'll send you her. And then the last person I've already recommended you to is my friend named Raina. She is Asian American, and I have inquired if she will reach out to you to be a part of those conversations. Well, back when you had those conversations, because she's an intelligent woman, and I think that you two would have a good conversation about that.
Well, I'm still having those. If you're talking about BIPOC solidarity, I'm planning on continuing them at some point. I've just been kind of operating in the spirit on this, but I think that'll be dope. Andrew, me and him, it's just more so we just got on Marco Polo together, so now we're kind of like got his number and everything. We're just trying to nail down a date. So yeah, that's already that's happening in the works. You actually, if I could ask a request, and I think this would be interesting because I would just love to hear just the experience through it all. I would love to interview the wifey. I don't think I've ever talked to Indy like that.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I think that would be dope. I think that would be
dope too.
I think just to hear her story, I think that'd be, you know what I'm saying? I think that'd be pretty dope.
She'll have the waterworks going because her story is just incredible. It's impactful, man. What she's
I'm a crier too. I bump R&B music, got by chicken wings, and I get in sad boy mode. That won't be it.
Yeah, I'll pitch it to her. I'll pitch it to her, and I don't want to speak for her, but she'll be happy, excited to hear that, I'm sure.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, brother, thank you for coming on, man. The beauty about this conversation is that I know that we would have talked like this without an audience, but man, I appreciate you coming on here and giving me your time. Like I'm gonna keep saying, you don't babysit your kids. You are a father to your kids. You know what I'm saying? And this was dope, man. And if you had anything else you wanted to like say to everybody at home this evening, the floor is yours.
Know that you are loved. And if you don't know that you're loved by anyone that you can directly contact, just know that you're loved by God. There is a God that is passionately in love with you. And is there for you. Know that you're loved by me. And I appreciate everybody taking their time to be on, especially this late with us, and just allow me to be me, be who I am, and lend me your time. So just be encouraged. Take life serious, but don't take yourself too serious. Enjoy the journey. Know that there's nothing impossible to God, period. I don't care what it looks like. There's nothing impossible or too difficult for God to accomplish in your life. And miracles do happen. They may not look how you think they look, though. It is a miracle to wake up every day. It is a miracle to be breathing without being conscious of it. These things are miracles. It just depends on your perception, your perspective of what miracles are. So yeah, don't limit your perspective. I'll say that. And think critically. Try to think critically. I think that's underrated.
All right.
That's it.
All right, everybody. Thank you, brother Mike, for coming in tonight, and thank you everybody for tuning in. This is a little later than I've ever actually gone, but that's fine. This will be available for playback. I'll do my best to get it up on the streaming platforms ASAP. But thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. Tomorrow I'm going to be holding the conversation Black Minds Matter, episode 2, talking about Black mental health, Black mental health stability, everything like that, nurturing your Blackness, like my brother talked on this evening. And hit my brother up. He's on TikTok as Mike the Saint. You know what I'm saying? Super mellow dude, super mellow depending on the subject. But super solid dude, you know what I'm saying? To get hooked up with and everything like that, to end up developing a bond and developing a relationship with. But I will see everybody tomorrow. If you show up. And once again, feel free if you are just tuning in, because it is 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm not the only night owl weirdo on the internet, so that's fine. But always remember, you are beautiful, blessed, and beloved. Raisins still don't go on potato salad, though. You're not off the hook. Like, some of these things are just blasphemous and demonic. We're not doing that. And Jesus wasn't white. He said, amen. Jesus wasn't white. Have a good night.